What happens when a black man saves a child in broad daylight, only to end up in handcuffs? He just wanted to help, but what happened next shook the entire city to its core. He wasn't chasing glory. There was no medal waiting for him at the finish line, no grand applause behind each quiet act of kindness. All he wanted, honestly, was to get home. Nothing fancy, just peace, a warm chair, a moment to himself. Elias Rowan had given enough that day, just like every day, his time, his knowledge, his belief in a future that didn't chew up black boys and spit out statistics. But as the sun dipped over Atlanta, warm and lazy like honey on cornbread, he wasn't thinking about justice or policy or politics. He was thinking about home. His car rolled slow through the neighborhood, familiar like an old hymn. Each turn, each light pole, whispered memories, routes to the community center, those Friday afternoon tech workshops he taught for kids who were too smart for the hand life dealt them. Trevon, a quiet boy with big eyes and a knack for coding, had finished his first app that week. Elias had beamed like a proud uncle. On the passenger seat was a Tupperware box of cookies the kids baked, still warm when he left. He planned to drop them off with Miss Lynette, his elderly neighbor who complained endlessly about pigeons and cursed softly under her breath at reality shows. She'd pretend the cookies were too sweet, then hide them in her purse when she thought no one was looking. A simple gesture, right? Thoughtfulness. But even that, it seemed, was too much in a country where skin color weighed more than character. The sky was a brushstroke of burnt orange. The jazz on the radio hummed low and easy. It could have been a perfect ending to a long day, until screeching brakes, a scream, barking, chaos. Elias's hands gripped the wheel before his mind fully caught up. One turn, just one turn, and everything changed. There on the sidewalk was a scene that didn't make sense at first. A child, maybe 5 or 6, was flailing, tangled in a leash that snaked around his arms like a trap. A large dog, clearly agitated, had latched onto the child's shirt. The mother screamed from a distance, frozen by fear, paralyzed by panic. Elias didn't hesitate. His instincts were older than fear, stronger than caution. He moved. He approached with calm, measured steps, not shouting, not running, but focused like a man who'd seen worse and knew what panic would cost. He knelt low, spoke softly to the dog, then moved quick, real quick. Hands steady, he unclasped the leash, pulled it free, pinned the dog gently to the ground, used his knee just enough to hold it in place without harm. He glanced up at the boy, face soaked with tears, mouth gasping for air. Elias winked. "It's all right now. Just breathe, little man." The mother rushed forward, arms wrapping around her son, voice breaking with gratitude. "Thank you. Oh, thank you. I couldn't. I didn't know what to do." Elias simply nodded. No hero speech, no chest beating. Just a kind man doing what kind men do. But kindness, as it turns out, doesn't shield you in this country. From a second-story window, a voice sliced through the calm like a rusty blade. "What is he doing to that child? Somebody call the police. He's choking him." A white woman in a housecoat leaned halfway out her window, phone in hand, already dialing. No pause, no questions. Just judgment soaked in old fears and lazy assumptions. Elias hadn't even stood up yet. The mother tried to explain, but it didn't matter. The narrative was already being written. 2 minutes later, sirens, then squealing tires, then boots on the pavement. 3 officers, moving like a SWAT team, as if Elias had been threatening national security instead of saving a child from a scared dog. The first cop out of the car was young, buzz-cut, pale as printer paper, with that twitch in his eyes that said he was ready for a fight, not the facts. "Get on the ground, now!" Elias raised his hands. "Wait, I just—" But there was no space for explanation, no time for reason. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut drowned out his voice. His chest hit the sidewalk. A knee pressed down on his back, not with rage, but with routine. He wore a button-down shirt and slacks. He looked like he just left a meeting, but somehow, to them, he was a threat. The mother shouted, "He saved my son! What are you doing?" One officer waved her off. "Ma'am, we'll take it from here." Take what? A man who just helped a child? A man who didn't run, didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. Welcome to America, where good deeds don't protect you from being black. In the back of the patrol car, Elias said nothing. Not out of fear, out of strategy. He knew the rules. He knew the trap. Speak too soon and you're aggressive. Ask a question and you're non-compliant. Breathe too loud and you're resisting. He just sat there breathing slow like a man bracing for a storm. One officer looked at him sideways. Who do you think you are anyway? Wearing that tie like you're somebody. Elias turned, eyes calm but sharp. Being human shouldn't require permission. But thank you for reminding me how much some people hate being reminded of that. The officer snorted. You'll have time to think about that in a cell. Classic. Land of the free, as long as your freedom doesn't make anyone uncomfortable. At the precinct, Elias was processed like inventory. Fingerprints, mugshot, empty shoelaces, fluorescent lights, cold tiles, the whole routine. What's the charge? He asked. The desk sergeant didn't look up. Attempted harm to a child, resisting. Elias almost laughed, but there was no humor in it, only a low burn in his chest. He sat in the holding cell, back to the wall, arms folded, mind racing, not from fear, but fury. He thought of his students, of Trevin. What would they think if they saw him now? What lesson could he offer them through steel bars? Then he saw her, Nia. She marched up to the front desk like she owned the place. One of his former students turned community organizer. She was 5'2" and full of fire. You got him in here? She asked, loud enough for the whole room to hear. For what? Did anyone watch the footage? Did you even bother to ask the mother? You people lose your minds anytime you see a black man doing something right. The officer blinked, stammered, reached for a clipboard he clearly hadn't read. Elias smiled, just a little. The first match had been struck. The system wasn't going to collapse overnight, but this time it had met someone who knew how to make it sweat. And what happened next? Well, let's just say it flipped the whole story upside down. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss what happened when the truth came knocking. Inside the Atlanta precinct, the night crawled like cold grease, slow, stale, and thick with silence. A few officers lounged behind desks, sipping flat soda and laughing at something no one outside their circle would ever find funny. The smell of cheap instant coffee and old paperwork clung to the air like mildew. It was a Tuesday night, but it could have been any night. It all blurred into one long loop of routine. But behind the thick iron bars of Cell 7, things felt different. Elias Rowan sat with his back pressed to the wall, elbows resting on his knees, palms open and still. He wasn't speaking. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he knew that if he opened his mouth, what might come out could shatter the walls. His silence wasn't passive, it was deliberate, tense, charged. He wasn't angry, not in the traditional sense. No, anger would have been easier. Anger was noisy, explosive, visible. But what he felt, it was deeper than that. It was insult. It was betrayal. And for a grown black man in America, that feeling, that quiet, sharp insult from a system that promised justice but delivered humiliation, that's a poison, slow, icy, silent. It kills from the inside, and it knows exactly where to start. Outside the cell, the precinct buzzed like any other government building past business hours. Laughter echoed faintly. Keys clacked like someone typing up a menu instead of a police report. Someone cracked open a can of soda with the casual indifference of a man who's never feared a badge or a courtroom. Elias closed his eyes. He saw the boy again. The dog, the terrified mother, her tears, her shaking, "Thank you," and how fast all of that gratitude was crushed beneath one careless shout from a window. "He's attacking the child," she had screamed. And just like that, truth got thrown into the gutter and fiction took the wheel. And while Elias sat there, heart calm but mind racing, outside a different kind of storm was forming. Her name was Nia, the same Nia who used to sit in his workshops, learning code like her future depended on it, because it did. Now she was marching into the precinct lobby like she had fire in her veins and a court order in her purse. She wasn't a lawyer, not yet, but she was something more dangerous, organized, angry, and connected. She had already pulled the surveillance footage, clean, direct, and undeniable. She had spoken to the mother. She'd uploaded the video to the cloud and sent it to 3 local influencers. One of them, let's call him Marcus, was just waiting for something like this to blow up. His TikTok caption read, "Black man saves a child, ends up in jail. This is not fiction." Back in the station, Officer Jack Lomax was sitting at his desk, 40-something, balding under his cap, worn out but not blind. He'd seen a lot in his years, some good, mostly bad. But when he opened Elias's file and checked the timestamps, his gut did something it hadn't done in a long while. It twisted. The arrest was logged before the 911 call. He paused, checked again. Same result. He clicked on the store's security cam footage from across the street. It was crystal clear. Elias didn't threaten that child. He saved him. He didn't resist. He complied. The mother wasn't screaming for help. She was crying tears of relief and gratitude. And yet the charge read, assault on a minor, resisting arrest. Lomax stood up, slow. He wasn't a hero, but he wasn't built to be a coward either. He walked to the sergeant's office. Sergeant Quincy looked up from behind a haze of cigar smoke, eyes half-lidded and tired of being questioned. "Quincy," Lomax started, holding out the tablet, "we've got a problem." "Then bury it," the sergeant grunted without looking. "Paperwork's in. He's processed. You want Fox News filming us for letting a suspect walk?" Lomax didn't move. Quincy leaned forward. "Let me make it simple. You like your paycheck? Then shut it down." There it was, the whole truth in one line. The system didn't need facts. It needed control. And if that control meant throwing a decent man under the bus, then so be it. But outside the building, another machine had started moving. And this one didn't answer to precinct politics. Dahlia Ward, a seasoned reporter with eyes that had seen too much to be intimidated, was already en route. Her sources told her, "We got a black hero in cuffs." She didn't hesitate. The minute she confirmed the footage, she was live. Her camera crew set up fast. On screen behind her, cops shuffled like ants under a magnifying glass, realizing too late that the light was already on them. TikTokers, Instagrammers, even old-school bloggers were posting minute-by-minute updates. The headline was already writing itself. Inside, Elias heard the shift before he saw it. The quiet chatter of guilt. The nervous pacing. Then came the knock. It was Lomax. He walked in holding the tablet like it weighed more than his badge. He pressed play. "You see this?" he asked. Elias leaned forward. "That's me, saving a kid." Lomax nodded slowly. "This ain't what's in the report." "No," Elias replied, calm but razor sharp. "But if you walk out that door and say nothing, then you become part of what is." The silence between them was long and heavy, like a rope tightening. Meanwhile, the crowd outside grew thicker. Not angry yet, but close. People held signs. "Saving ain't a crime. Where's the footage? Let him out." Quincy stepped out, sweating under the pressure. He tried the usual politician line, smiling through clenched teeth. "We're reviewing the situation," he told Dahlia. She didn't blink. "You arrested a man for helping. Where's the mother's statement?" Before he could dodge, the mother herself stepped into the frame. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. "That man saved my son, and you locked him up because he's black. That's the truth. You want a statement? You're looking at it." Mic drop. Everything shifted. Inside, high heels clicked down the hallway like a warning shot. A woman stepped into the room, folder in hand. She wasn't public defense. She wasn't part of the system. She was brought in from outside, and she meant business. "My client is being released," she said flatly, "or you'll be facing a lawsuit by morning." Quincy's face turned the color of old ketchup. The dam had cracked. 1 hour later, Elias walked out of the building. No apology, no handshake, just a dismissal notice and a form that read, "Case closed." He signed, not out of forgiveness, but because he knew this story wasn't over. Outside, applause erupted. Nia raised her fist. Dahlia raised her mic. "What do you want to say to the people?" she asked. Elias looked straight into the camera. Not tired, not broken, just ready. "This isn't about me," he said. This is about a system that treats kindness like a threat and silence like permission. I won't be silent. And the people cheered, not for a victim, but for a man who turned poison into power. This was the breaking point. The moment the narrative cracked, stay here, that's when the system finally gets called to the stand. The Atlanta precinct, where just days ago Elias Rowan had been locked in a holding cell like a suspect, like a danger, like a name on a list instead of a man with a heart and a history, was now a war zone. Not with violence, but with truth, with cameras, with the steady, thunderous rise of public attention. It buzzed with the swarm of media, humming like a nest that had been kicked hard enough to wake something that had been sleeping too long. News vans cluttered the curb, their antennas clawing at the sky. Reporters elbowed for space. Someone knocked over a latte trying to get the best mic angle. A local anchor screamed into her phone over the noise. The street looked like someone had staged a press conference at rush hour. And in the middle of all that, barely hanging on, was the beat-up Camry of Elias's lawyer, miraculously unflattened beneath the weight of satellite trucks and camera crews. By the time the sun reached its highest point, the article had already gone viral. Black man saves child, ends up in jail. How? People didn't ask for context. They didn't want excuses. They saw the headline, then they saw the footage, and that was enough. What followed was fury, of the focused kind. And right there, front and center on the precinct steps, stood Elias Rowan. Not in cuffs this time. Not in that cell with peeling paint and no apology. No, now he wore a suit the color of restrained fire. Crisp, quiet, powerful. The kind of suit that says, "I'm not here to be pitied, I'm here to be heard." To his left stood the boy's mother, tear-streaked but proud. To his right, his lawyer, cool, sharp, unshaken. The camera zoomed in. The crowd hushed. And when Elias stepped up to the microphone, the street leaned in. "I was in a cell because I helped," he said, voice calm, voice deliberate. "Not because I broke the law, but because someone looked at me and thought I looked like someone who could." He didn't shout. He didn't need to. That's America. That's the truth. And I'm not hiding from it. Behind the lenses, reporters furiously tapped their notes. Every journalist in a 20-mile radius seemed to be on site. Dahlia Ward filmed it raw. No cuts, no commentary, just the moment. Inside, behind a half-shut office door, Sergeant Quincy broke a pen in two. That morning, he'd received a call from upstairs. Not a request, a command. Initiate internal review. Fire whoever you need to, and keep your mouth shut. Too late. The truth, once it breathes, does not crawl back into silence. Officer Jack Lomax, the one who saw the video, the one who didn't flinch, had stepped up. Not in secret, not off the record. He sat down for an interview, on camera, on air. "I was part of a system that trained us to look away," Lomax said. "But I can't look away from this. What happened to Mr. Rowan wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice." And with that, the dam cracked wide open. First came the lawsuit, but not a single-page complaint. This was a stack of legal fire aimed at the entire police department, at Quincy, at every officer who signed off on false reports. It wasn't a whisper. It was a shot fired in broad daylight. Next came the signatures. 130,000 people in less than 48 hours. The petition demanded three things: Quincy's resignation, a full investigation into racial bias cases, and an independent review board with real teeth. The movement had a name now. Number Justice was saved, not served. The mayor, white, polished, and up until then quieter than a sermon during halftime, finally stepped out for a press conference. "We recognize the need to re-examine our protocols." The crowd booed. People weren't buying it. "It's not protocols," someone shouted. "It's people. You're protecting your buddies." And just when it seemed the tension couldn't get thicker, Elias stepped into the room. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't swing his fists. He just stood there like a man who'd been dragged through the fire and decided to bring the heat with him. "Protocols don't kneel on backs," he said. "Protocols don't falsify reports. People do. People who know they won't face consequences." He turned toward the cameras. "Not away. Never again. I'm not just someone they locked up. I'm a data analyst, and I propose a civilian oversight committee for every case involving a person of color. Not one hired by the department, not one with a badge, one run by us, with numbers, with audits, with accountability. Then came the real warning. And if this city won't act, fine, we'll see you in court. Not just for my case, for every story you tried to bury. The room froze. What they expected was outrage. What they got was a plan, a challenge. A man not only standing, but pushing back, with strategy and structure. And while the mayor sweat, Elias went to work. He launched a platform, Invisible Cases. It became a lightning rod. Stories poured in. Teachers who'd been accused of theft in their own classrooms. Doctors mistaken for janitors, then cuffed outside hospitals. Teenagers stopped for matching descriptions that never existed. All of them had been told at some point, "You look suspicious." Elias took every story, cataloged them, connected them, turned pain into data. Within a month of his arrest, Sergeant Quincy quietly resigned. No press conference, no farewell handshake, just a memo and an empty office. But the city knew. The people clapped. Elias's lawyer called a press conference that same day. "We didn't just get justice for Elias, we exposed something bigger, and we're not stopping." And Elias, he didn't go back to normal. There was no normal to return to. He became a speaker, a strategist, a teacher again, but now to adults who finally wanted to listen. He joined the city's Reform Advisory Board. He gave lectures on algorithmic bias at the university, and he went back to the youth center. The boys who once watched him teach now looked at him like a superhero. No cape, just courage. One afternoon, the little boy he saved walked up to him. "Aren't you scared it could happen again?" he asked. Elias smiled. Slow, warm, strong. "Fear's a luxury, son," he said. "I choose strength." And that was it. He didn't need to prove himself anymore. He didn't need to explain his dignity. He wore it, lived it, breathed it. When a news anchor finally asked him, weeks later, "How do you feel after all this?" he laughed. Not loudly, not bitterly, but like a man who'd survived and knew what survival cost. "I feel like a black man in America," he said. "Only now, I've got a microphone. If you're still reading, then you've seen it all. The pain, the injustice, the fight, and the flame that won't go out." Elias Rowan isn't a myth. He's a message. And that message? Don't wait for the system to fix itself. Make it answer to you.